What is your supplement? So you talked about what you do for sleep already.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what is sort of your...
Beyond that, it's pretty basic. I mean, obviously whey protein, creatine, I am definitely very bullish on, but I found that for me to make creatine, to make the juice worth the squeeze with creatine, I might get in trouble for saying like 10 to 15 grams is really where I benefit. Maybe that's just because I have a larger muscle mass. Maybe I just need more. 5 grams, I actually find like I just retain some water and don't get a huge benefit out of it.
And how do you know if you're getting a benefit?
I can feel it. I mean, that's like tremendous difference in just... And for me, I think a lot of it is because I'm pretty low carb, it's the intracellular water that I get from creatine that I don't otherwise have from carbohydrate stores. Okay. So I think just that internal leverage, because I mean, I just feel it. I feel like the actual like contractile like strength is stronger.
Got it.
I'm physically stronger, but I can feel it. I've been training long enough to really feel when that internal leverage is just different. Yeah. It's like, it's like if you wear a weight belt and you create that internal pressure, you feel stronger in your core because you've got that you've got that fluid ball that you've created against a weight belt. Everyone can tell you that if they wear a weight belt, they feel a little bit stronger because you get to push against that weight belt. The same thing is kind of true with your muscles when you have that, more water volume in your muscle in the right way. And I find like probably because I don't eat a whole lot of carbohydrates, my muscle stores are probably not ever super full. And 5 grams of creatine probably just isn't enough. But when I get to 10, 15, it's like, okay, now the extra water retention that I don't necessarily like to have for being on camera or photos is worth it because I'm actually able to volumize this muscle through heavy training. Become a big fan of TMG. I really think betaine, trimethylglycine is, especially as an antioxidant, which is really where it seems like, in particular with training, that's where the evidence is really strong. So I found big improvement with that. Always been a big magnesium guy. Other than that, those are really the staples. I mean, I definitely mess around with other little things and have some fun with it and stuff like that, and different peptides and things like that. And I try to look at it through the lens of that's fun. What can I do? What little levers can I pull and try to get a little more performance? But the big staples are basics. Yeah,
I would agree with you on supplements too. Mine is pretty short as well. It's interesting because, you hear about these people who are taking 100+ supplements, but then when you actually talk to the people who are knowledgeable and often successful, they don't have that huge stack. So can we finish up real quickly with peptides? Because since you brought it up, this really interesting topic, lots and lots of people are interested to hear sort of your experience with peptides and kind of how you navigate, the sort of intriguing information that's out there, but also in many cases, lack of a real large body of evidence, right, to support efficacy with these peptides.
Yeah. I think with the peptide world, it's largely anecdotal and it's spreading like wildfire. There is something to be said with anecdote, though. Obviously, people are having, at least seemingly having effects from it. My personal experience with it, I'm not going to just take something usually willy-nilly if it's like a mystery compound, but with things like BPC and TB-500, there's literature that's been around, at least in rodents, for a long enough time to at least for me to risk reward, say, okay, the safety profile is probably fine. And I've also done Pernuvo scans and Ezra scans and make sure I don't have any like tumors.
Sure.
And that's usually like, if resources would allow you to do that, that would be my recommendation. I'm like, before, there's a lot of, growth hormone analogs and all kinds of different things that are out there, which I think have promise, but if you can afford it, go get a full body MRI scan before you go hop on something like that.
And maybe in general, even if you're not going to do peptides, it's not a bad idea. But
agreed, 100%. But anytime you're talking about angiogenesis and you're talking about like especially with BPC, like if you did have something growing, there's a good chance it could exacerbate it. So why take that risk? So that was one of the things, like the prerequisite for me was before I did any kind of BPC or anything like that, I wanted to do one of those scans and kind of make sure, because I wouldn't have touched it otherwise.
Got it.
Probably would have been doing some other things if I saw something.
Right.
But so it's difficult because I don't know if we're going to see any like human trials on this anytime soon.
Unfortunately, I think that's the challenge right now, right? Yeah.
And so you do take a little bit of a risk. However, these are things that I don't think are designed to be taken long-term anyway. And so my own personal opinion is like with BPC-157, I'm down to do a couple rounds a year of it, and just use it in 3 to 5 week sprints, but really only use it as needed. I've definitely toyed around with like Ipamorelin and CJC. I took Ipamorelin, but that one like made my blood sugar do some wonky things.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you wearing a CGM? Is that how you knew?
No, but I could just tell. I
feel it.
Yeah, you flush and get those feelings. And that's a known side effect of it. And also then it was affecting my sleep. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty telltale. Yeah. And with Ipamorelin, that's like the most common thing. The CJC, the Ipamorelin definitely helped my sleep, but it's one of those things where I can't get it out of my mind that there's nothing in life comes for free. Like you can't borrow from tomorrow for today. Like you're going to be, or you can, but you're going to borrow from tomorrow. So I'm just like, okay, yes, this is triggering a growth hormone pulse, but what's the catch? Like that's why I always ask myself, maybe it's cynical, but there's always got to be a little bit of a catch. So I try to look at these things with like, I mean, even without myosin, right? Like it's like there's a little bit of a catch, right? So, and it doesn't mean that the cost benefit is going to not be in your favor, but I want to know, right? And I think that's the main reason you look at safety profiles is you just want to know, is it worth the squeeze? So with the like GHRPs and things like that, we just don't know. So it's not something that I'm willing to do for long periods of time. I'm just finishing up a round of CJC and Ipamorelin, and my recovery's been great. My ability to like turn around and train has been nothing like it's been in 10 years. So, I mean, anecdotally, yeah. But also it's helped me sleep a lot. So is it coming from the growth hormone or is it coming from the actual sleep that's coming as a result of it? You know?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we chatted just briefly about this off camera, but just yesterday interviewed Greg Fahey, who works on thymic regeneration. And again, that's a place where he's pretty sure that the growth hormone treatment can actually improve thymic function in adults and potentially improve immune function. So again, there's some biology there that suggests there could be some benefits, and you want to be aware of the risks.
Yeah.
So,
but that's also just, that's in isolation in one kind of myopic lens, right? So it's
absolutely
like so many things. The nice thing about growth hormone in general, I haven't messed around with actual growth hormone, but I mean, that's a pretty universal hormone for a lot of things. Right. So, even though you could be looking at it through one lens of thymus, there's also a lot of other things that it could be doing. So.
Yeah, we'll finish up with this, but I find it interesting. I'm interested to get your perspective how sometimes like growth hormone, and I'm certainly not suggesting people should go out and start taking growth hormone, but things like growth hormone, I think the peptides to some extent, kind of get demonized a bit. And again, there may be real risks associated with these things for sure. Like growth hormone, people will say there's this big cancer risk. You talked about going and getting an MRI first. And so they sort of get that reputation for causing cancer, even though there's not a lot of data to show that they cause cancer. It's a concern. It's something we'll be aware of. But sometimes molecules in the absence of data can get, talked about as if they have these crazy benefits, but it also goes the other direction. Sure. Sometimes they get demonized. And, I think as you alluded to with the peptides, it seems unlikely we're going to get the clinical trial data anytime soon. So you have to kind of find a good doc and do your own risk reward analysis. And I assume you've got a good doc helping you with this.
Sometimes, you look at things like this and you're like, okay, well, it might not get the attention that it deserves. And sometimes that's how you know it works.
Yeah, maybe. Awesome.